So today we're going to be talking about the new races of Azeroth at war. 6 of them have finally received their starting zones. Now, I got to try out all of them in the recent open beta. At least all of them in terms of the 6 that have been released, you know. There's still a few more that have yet to get their starting zones, but they'll come probably in the next beta. So the races that I did are the Ogre, the Murloc, Broken, Forest Troll, High Elf, and Worgen. You'll see behind me here all of the various customizations you could do for the brand new races. I'm not going to go through their class combinations just yet because it is still a work in progress. A lot of them are being switched in and out between the closed and the open beta, and probably into the next beta as well. I chose for this beta to make an Ogre Warrior, a Murloc Rogue, a Broken Shaman, a Forest Troll Rogue, a High Elf Druid, which is fucking weird, but okay, and a Worgen Hunter. Now, starting off with the Ogres, I thought the starting zone itself was okay. However, my one grievance is that you did a lot of running around back and forth, and it took up the majority of the time running between point A, point B, point C, point D, and then back to A again, then back to C again, then back to B again. So that's really what took up the majority of the time. When you were not running around, the quests themselves and the combat was very good. The scripted events were also very good, though I did have one game-breaking bug that caused me to not be able to play my Ogre anymore. Luckily, it was on the very last quest, so I did pretty much get to see the entire zone, but that bug is that when you die on the last part of the starting zone, you are phased away from your body. Your spirit ends up on the real world, but your body is still in the phased starting zone, so I was not able to recover it because of the phasing issues there. Though I will say, during the internal beta where I was testing it before the beta itself, this wasn't an issue, so I think this is just a random bug that appeared overnight on the beta. It should be a fairly easy fix, as no other starting zones have this issue as far as I know. Going to the Murlocs. The Murloc area is actually a zone that I created. Of course, you know, putting it down on paper and seeing it in practice are two different things. I felt it was actually pretty decent. While there is a little bit of running back and forth, it wasn't nearly as bad as the Ogre. The combat itself was okay. I didn't have too much trouble with it. The enemies were decently leveled, and that's pretty much it. The Murloc area, I think, is a good to go. Now with the Broken. The Broken is another zone that I created. Again, how is it compared to me writing it and it in practice? I think the Broken starting zone is one of the best starting zones. It starts off with you as a Draenei, because remember, during the fall of Shatrath, Broken didn't exist yet. So you start off the fall of Shatrath as a Draenei. From there, you are in combat, fighting against the Orcish Horde, the first Orcish Horde. You have to try to get your people out into safety. Now, a lot of inspiration of the Draenei starting zone came from the Lords of War animatic with Maraud, and as you can see, Maraud is in the starting zone. Now, we already know what happens to Maraud. We take place in the background away from him, so while he goes off and does what happens in the animatic, we go off and try to protect our people by fighting the Horde, to then find out what happens later. Now, that's only phase 1. The Broken starting zone is actually 3 phases. I'm not going to spoil the third phase, but the second phase is now you as a Broken in Zengar Marsh, and the best part is that Zengar Marsh is built like completely custom to make it look like as if it was supposed to look like in the original alpha of vanilla World of Warcraft. So yeah, definitely a lot different than the Zengar Marsh of TBC, and this will be the only time we'll ever see Outland in this server, as after you leave this area, you're not going to be able to see it anymore. The next one is the Forest Trolls. The Forest Trolls, in my opinion, are, I think, the worst starting zone. This starting zone is pretty bad. Now, remember what I said about the Ogres running back and forth? With this one, unfortunately, it is the worst offender when it comes to this, and not only that, the quests themselves were pretty lacking and boring. Now, from Reventusk Village all the way up to Jintha Allure is already a walk. You have to do that walk at least like 4 or 5 times. One of the times, they do give you a automated bear mount to kind of run up for you, so it's not as bad. But then, after that, the very last quest is to go back down to Reventusk Village, but you don't have your bear anymore. So it's literally like, good luck. So yeah, just running back and forth, up and down to Jintha Allure, to Reventusk, us 4 or 5 times, not to mention across the beach, up the beach, down the beach again. It was just absolutely terrible. The quests themselves, like I said, were boring. It didn't really explain why the forest trolls are going to join the horde. There's pretty much one NPC that pretty much information dumped you why the forest trolls are joining the horde. The quests themselves didn't really reflect that, other than, oh, there's an enemy, so we need the horde to help defeat them. Oh, okay. So yeah, I didn't find them all too engaging, and it's, in my opinion, one of the worst zones. I think it can be reiterated upon and, you know, made to feel a little bit better. Like, let us keep that bear amount to go back and forth a few more times so it's just not as much of a chore, because when you're running that amount of distance over and over and over again, 1 time is fine, 5 times is not okay at all. Now the High Elves. The High Elves were a little bit better. The area itself is pretty much contained. While there is a lot of running back and forth, there is stuff to do between points A, B, and C, so you're not feeling as much of a drag when you're running between the different areas. And even then, the areas themselves are within a certain area, so it's not as bad. There is a lot of cool, interesting things within the zone, like from the trolls, which don't really do much. They're just kind of there to be there. You know, they capture some of your people, so you have to go and save them, obviously. But then, with the most interesting part were the Sindori assassins trying to kill you, and you having to fight back. I really don't know why the High Elves can be druids. It doesn't really make sense to me from a lore perspective. I don't really give a fuck if they are connected to the Night Elves in some form or manner. They are disconnected from the Night Elves completely in terms of culture, magics, everything. They're not in tune with nature as the Night Elves are, so I don't really know why they're druids. But hey, I played a druid because for the lull of it. And the last one is the Worgen starting zone. Now, the Worgen starting zone does have a little bit of that running back and forth, but it's only like a one-time thing when you have to run to the gates of Gilneas and then run back to Pyrewood Village. After that, it's all contained within the village itself, so it's not that bad. The only grievance I have with it is that there's way too many enemies during the sacking of Pyrewood Village, in terms of the actual battle where the undead are attacking the village and you have to kind of run back to the coast and then run back and fight them again. It's just way too condensed, and it gets to a point where you have like 3, 4, 5 of the enemies on you, and the various NPCs, they help you out in the first phase of the fight, but towards the last phase where they're all kind of gathered up near the Flight Master, they don't really fight. They just kind of stand there. Even if you're right next to them fighting an NPC, they don't really do any. So I feel the way to make that, you know, a little bit better is to have those Worgen help fight the undead. Have them, you know, rush in as you pull enemies up so they can help you fight. It would make it a little bit more bearable, because every time I have done that area, both in the internal and the open beta itself, I have died on that repeatedly because there's just so many enemies and you have to run through them in order to turn in quests and stuff. So it just made it really hard to do. But other than that, that is my experience with the first 6 custom starting zones for the custom races of Azeroth at War. Did you play the open beta? Let me know. Which one is your favorite? Which one is your least favorite? I would say the broken starting zone is my all-time favorite, so far at least, with the forest troll being my absolute least favorite. I think it's kind of bad, and I'm going to be skipping that starting zone if I ever make another troll. But until then, we still need to see what the Naga starting zone will look like, what the Furbog starting zone would look like, the Goblin, and so on. So until then, stay tuned for my next Azeroth at War video, which will be about the zones themselves. I only did get to play the Alliance zones this time around, so we're only going to be talking about those. Next time the beta comes around, I'll be playing a Horde character so we can see those areas as well. Until then, I'll see you guys next time.